طبعا أنا بشرف بوجودي في محافظة الفيوم
Today I
برفقة
am
زملائي
honored to be in the governorate of Fayoum with many of my colleagues, ministers of environment, trade and industry, amongst others, and of course in the company of the governor of Fayoum Governorate. This is, of course, a visit under the Decent Life Initiative, and we started by the Fayoum Governorate. And today, allow me to shed some light on some of the projects that we have toured. Of course, this is all part of the new projects that President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi is giving his directives to constantly monitor. The first project we visited was the development of Sawagi area. This is a very important touristic site in Fayoum Governorate, and this is a very important area in Fayoum. When we started developing this area, there was lots of speculation that the government was here to remove this important area, but however, this is the opposite. On the contrary, we are here to develop this area. And after we visited the place, we've seen how the Sawai area has developed and become reformed and now is back to working in its full capacity. And of course, a great area for the families, an entertainment area for Fayoum families and visitors. And it is next to it is the Cultural Palace, which the Ministry of Culture has also developed and reformed. We then moved to another project, which is the development and building of 500,000 housing units all around the country, and this is a very important project for our housing projects, especially in new urban areas. And we also always wanted to start such projects in current urban areas, not just the new cities, allowing medium-income families as well as the youth access to these new housing units. Today on Shona and Mahlag lands, they are in Mahlag Fayoum areas which have been developed. We used a part of this land to develop these housing projects for the Fayoum citizens, and we toured, of course, the units today, which will be available as soon as possible to the residents of Fayoum. We then moved to the reason behind this visit, the Kalhana village in Itza district for the Decent Life Initiative project. In Fayoum Governorate, we are in the first stage of Itza and Yusuf al-Siddi, 64 villages and 600 smaller villages, and I have been assured that most of the projects are going according to schedule, and by the end of December we should be done with the first phase, and this is about a third of the villages of the governorate. The second phase we will start 2023, and when we finish these, we will finish about 80% of the villages of the Fayoum Governorate. We've also visited several areas like the technological centers, the new schools. We've seen the medical convoys that we have seen in collaboration with medical universities in Egypt, and these are very important, and they are available throughout the year in all the governorates, providing medical services for all these citizens. We've also seen new projects in the Decent Life Initiative villages, and I've been assured of all the services that have been already started, like natural gas, water, sanitation, sewage services, all to provide new and upgraded services and a decent life, of course, for citizens in these villages. After this, we visited a very important project, as Fayoum used to struggle with a shortage of drinking water, especially in summer. And today we saw in Azab area the development of a new water plant providing 480,000 square meters every day of drinking water, and adding another 120,000 square cubic meters of water. Again, availability of extra water, especially for the summer months. And our aim is to increase energy, especially in the water stations, to provide sufficient services all around the governorate. Especially if there's water shortages, we want to prevent any of that. And we've also seen lots of industrial areas, which has many workshops, over 50 meters per workshop, all for the different industries available for young entrepreneurs. And this is a sufficient space of a workshop, especially for small, medium enterprises in the clothing sector, as well as some chemical projects or engineering projects. We also have new workshops, which are over 600 meters in size, over 700 factories available for different industries, of course, all to develop new job opportunities and employment opportunities. We are talking about thousands of job opportunities now available in these areas. According to the presidential directives, we're doing all these projects to allow, of course, new job opportunities to be created, as well as decrease imports and develop our domestic industries. Of course, we aim for increased exports, but more importantly, we want to create more job opportunities as well as decrease imports. We are grateful that our unemployment levels are decreasing to 7.12%, which is one of the lowest rate of unemployment that Egypt has seen in a long time, and this is as a result of the provision of new job opportunities in different industries that we are creating. The reason I'm saying this is that after we've seen all these projects, we ask ourselves the question, can we possibly stop working on any of these projects? Of course we cannot, even with the global challenges and global circumstances. We have to finish this work today instead of later, which will cost us almost double the cost. We have to continue with these large projects in order to provide these services for our citizens. We wrapped up our tour on the Karun River, and according to the directives of President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, we are, of course, trying to reform and develop all the rivers in Egypt, which used to, over the last 50 or 60 years, suffer from pollution, and Harun River was one of these rivers struggling from pollution. However, now we can see Manzala and Maryut rivers alongside this river, Etko as well, Etko River, Karun as well, was very challenging, and I was monitoring these challenges with the ministers, first of which is that the river is a low-lying river, and this area is all low-lying area, so the water all pours into this low-lying area, and as a result of the high temperatures and the lack of renewing water sources, the river started to decrease, and of course its salt levels and pollution levels increased as a result of evaporation as well, and as a result of course 13 industries, unfortunately, that used to dump their waste into the river, and this was a result of the villages around the river. So the government has decided, from the Ministry of Irrigation, to reform and develop the drainage systems in lots of different drainage sites and areas, which used to pour down into this river. The Ministry of Irrigation has reformed all these drainage areas, allowing more fresh water into the river, and we are now back to the original levels of the river before the sewage dumping. Today, it's 55,000 fadans of this river, back to its original natural size. At the same time, of course, this is very important to allow fresh water sources back into the river. And of course, here, over 450 million square meters of water evaporates from this river. And as a result of the reform that we've done in the drainage systems, we have succeeded in refurbishing the river's levels. At the same time, with regards to sewage dumping, out of the 13 factories that used to dump in the river, 6 have stopped, and the other 7 companies by the end of this year will have created their own desalination plants and stop polluting the river. Of course, sewage sites with the Decent Life Initiative is a very important project that the government has started in creating new sewage plants, as well as connecting all villages to sewage lines, allowing, of course, the main source of pollution for the river to stop. Of course, after some time, we need to deal with challenges like this. But what I can say, and what is important to mention, is that there are now new areas in this river where we can see the fish have returned, the water is clear and clean and no longer polluted. And this is a great opportunity to allow fisheries to resume in this river. And another issue that I want to talk about that we cannot deny is the birds. We can see the Haroun River was a place where lots of birds used to stop during their migration, like the flamingo bird. And we can see the return of these birds to these rivers as a result, of course, of the improvement of the river's water. We also have another giant project to decrease the salt levels in this river, which is the development of a very big factory in salt, a salt factory, which will be on the other side of the river in order to produce salt. Of course, this will provide great job opportunities, which will allow us to as well create a salt industry, as well as reduce the salt levels in this river. All of these projects are being carried out in order to improve the river as well as develop these areas. If there are any questions? Your Excellency Prime Minister, this is an important visit to Fayoum Governorate. And this is, of course, part of your Decent Life Initiative visits and tours around the country. Could you tell us a bit about some of the initiatives you provide for investors? Of course, the Egyptian government has taken very important steps over the last period of time. The first of which is the making available of lands to industries, and we've also given right of use to people who want to invest and use these lands. And we've also, the industrial lands prices will also be clarified, so all entrepreneurs will know the price of each meter of industrial land available, the value of the services available on this land. Another important issue is that any license or industrial license will be issued with only 20 days before it is issued from the Ministry of Industry, all to ease the procedures when it comes to licenses, industrial licenses. We've already had over 20,000 industrial licenses issued over the last 20 days or so. Of course, there are lots of other incentives through the investment law, which of course are very popular by now. Giving 50% discounts with regards to the production, yes, the production costs. And yesterday we had a meeting that we want to renew another part of the investment law to give a further 5 years for people to repay any loans, and we will be choosing specific industries which are new industries or industries that we don't have already in Egypt. We need to, for example, electronic cars, the industry of electronic cars manufacturing. Other new industries that we don't have in Egypt, we want to encourage investors to come and start these industries in Egypt, and we will give investors incentives that we will be paying them back. Almost up to 70% of the taxes that they pay will be returned to them. For example, if you have 100 million in taxes, I will return up to 70% of these taxes if you pay within 45 days. Of course, this depends on the kind of industry and the importance of this industry. We can almost return up to 70% of taxes they pay back to them, and this is a great incentive for the upcoming period. And this is a very important incentive, amongst others, in order to assist investors and help them, encourage them to invest, especially foreign investors, as well as domestic investors, to come, and business persons to come and invest in new industries in Egypt. Today's tour also witnessed the new housing units. Does this mean that slum areas are now eradicated? And how does this work towards creating job opportunities for the youth? These new housing units are in a new stage. At first, we were concentrating on slum areas, informal settlements, trying to eradicate them from the country. In today's new projects, the new housing units, the 500,000 new housing units, are now for areas that were not officially accepted for these alternative homes. So we are trying to restructure these areas, provide new services for these homes, and we provide alternative housing units for the people in these areas. Of course, job opportunities, the new provision of job opportunities is very important, and I am guaranteeing that every single new project that we have launched in Egypt has allowed the unemployment rate to decrease to 7.12%, which is one of the lowest levels Egypt has seen in many years. Lots of people discuss issues related to national debt. So I want to assure them in response to this that the Egyptian economy has exponentially grown, and we've seen the Minister of Finance who spoke to President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi a week ago about the financial year 2021-22. Our 2 trillion 1 billion Egyptian pounds is our national debt. This means that the Egyptian economy has grown exponentially, and this is very important for me as a government. But at the same time, we always have to compare how much debt compared to the percentage of economic growth in the country. What if we hadn't done any of these projects or national projects or mega national projects? Would the Egyptian citizen be able to be without electricity or water or new roads, services or jobs? No, the Egyptian citizen would not. So let's keep in mind that this is a very important development. 2014, when President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi came to office, unemployment rate was at 13.2 or 13.4%. From 2014 to 2022, Egypt has increased in size and population size over the last 8 years. We've increased about 18 million people. But today, the rate of unemployment is at 7.2%. What does this mean? As a message, we've started at 13.2%, and now, even though the Egyptian population size has increased by about 18-20 million people, but still we've managed to decrease the unemployment rate to 7.2%, which means I have created new job opportunities, not just, and I've even accommodated the increase in population, which means I've worked on this in 2 levels. This is very important for people to know what the government has been doing and working on. If the government hadn't embarked on these new projects, if there were no new services for the people, does this mean that there would have been new job opportunities? Would there be new industries or factories or job opportunities without all these new services? If we hadn't done all these projects, we would have not seen these new job opportunities. And we would have seen new youth, at least about 1 million a year, looking for work. What were these people going to do? Unemployment would have increased exponentially. We would have passed 20% of unemployment. If 20% of the population was unemployed, what would this mean for Egypt? We are talking about security and stability for a country. So we must all be aware that this size of, so we must always ask ourselves, if we hadn't embarked on these national projects, what would have happened to our youth? What would have happened to our unemployment rates and levels? Would we be where we are today, or would we be seeing a big problem, especially with the youth and people entering the work market? Would the private sector have been able alone to accommodate all this new workforce? And we know during this period there were lots of challenges and security challenges. Of course, it would be unfair for the private sector to just have the role of employment of all these new people looking for work. If it wasn't for the Egyptian government's perseverance, in spite of all the challenges, to continue with these national mega projects, we wouldn't have been where we are today. Please keep in mind Keep in mind how developed nations, some of the greatest countries all around the world, are struggling now, especially in Europe, which is one of the most richest continents, how they are having great problems with regards to prices increasing, especially in energy prices. Today, we are lucky, thank God, that we have managed to persevere and keep in mind that the government has tried to keep in mind the needs of the Egyptian citizens. Thank you very much.